One of the repeated topics, sometimes in the form of question, sometimes in the form of statements, understanding the avatars or the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world, both the spirit court like in second canto. Parikshit asks, Brahma asks Vishnu, same question, here the same topic, and so forth. Understanding the forms of the Lord, what's their nature? In comparison to Prakriti, because Prakriti is under his control, so when the Lord appears, how to understand his involvement with, or the relationship with, Prakriti. So here's Bhaktisiddhanta's translation. My dear Lord, although you are transcendental to material nature, and like the sky, you are never entangled in any way, you assume different forms of incarnation in this world according to the desires of your devotees. So now this is another Bhagavatam message, that is, the Lord doesn't have to do anything, but he does things. And when he does things, one of the main background understandings is he's reciprocating with desires. Now he's reciprocating with the desires of the materialists as well. Yeyatam prapadyante, tangstataiva bhajamyaham. So situations are created in this world because of desire that results in a free will choice that results in responsibility for those choices, and things happen in the material world, and things happen in relationship with Krishna appearing in this world in his avatar forms. Here's the BBT purport. The pure devotees of the Lord propagate devotional service all over the world, and therefore, although separate from the personal form of the Lord, they are considered to be manifestations of God's mercy and potency, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita Anchu Leela 7:11. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tara Pravartana. Paragraph. The Lord is like the sky, or Vyoma, because although expanded everywhere, he is not entangled in anything. He is prakrite para, or completely transcendental to material nature. The Lord is fully satisfied, self-satisfied, and is therefore indifferent to the affairs of the material world. Still, because of his causeless mercy, the Lord desires to expand pure devotional service, and for this reason he incarnates within the material world to uplift the fallen conditioned souls. Paragraph. The Lord descends in selected spiritual bodies to please his loving devotees. Sometimes he appears in his original form as Krishna. And even Krishna himself appears in different forms to special devotees, so that they may fully develop their loving sentiments for him. Srila Jiva Goswami gives several examples of the Lord's special mercy upon his devotees. Lord Krishna personally went to the home of Jambavan, and there displayed a form with slightly angry glances. In that form, the Lord enjoyed a fight with his devotee. The Lord displayed his form as Dattatreya to Atri Muni, and similarly bestowed special mercy upon Lord Brahma, the demigods, Akrura, and innumerable other devotees. And in Vrindavan, the Lord displayed his most beautiful form as Govinda to the fortunate inhabitants. Paragraph. Srila Madhvacharya has quoted from the Prakash Samhita as follows, quote, it's a long quote, the Lord accepts different spiritual bodies according to the desire of his devotees. For example, the Lord agreed to become the son of Vasudeva Devaki. Thus, although Lord Krishna has an eternal blissful spiritual form, he appears to enter within the body of his devotee, who becomes his mother. Although we speak of the Lord's quote, taking on a body, unquote, the Lord does not change his form, as do the conditioned souls who must change their material bodies. The Lord appears in his own eternally unchangeable forms. Lord Hari always appears in the forms that are especially desired by his loving devotees, and never in other forms. However, if one thinks that the Lord, in the manner of an ordinary person taking birth, becomes physically the physical son of Vasudeva or other devotees, then one is victimized by illusion. The Lord merely expands his spiritual potency, causing his pure devotees to think, quote, Krishna is now my son. One should understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never accepts or rejects a material body, nor does he ever give up his eternal spiritual forms, semicolon. Rather, the Lord eternally manifests his blissful bodies according to the loving sentiments of his eternal pure devotees. So that's confirming what Uddhava is saying from Prakash Samhita. Paragraph. Srila Jiva Goswami mentions that the word Vyoma also indicates the Lord's name of Paravyoma, or the Lord of the spiritual sky. One should not misinterpret this verse to mean that Lord Krishna is impersonal, like the material sky, or that the form of Krishna is merely another selected incarnation equal to any other. Such casual and whimsical speculations cannot be accepted as actual spiritual knowledge. Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. Bhagavatam 1.3.28. And the Lord has explained elaborately in Bhagavad Gita that he is the original source of everything. Therefore, the pure devotees of the Lord are eternally engaged in full knowledge of and bliss in loving service to the Lord's original form as Krishna. The whole purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to arouse our love for Lord Krishna, and one should not foolishly misunderstand this great purpose. So here's Bhaktisiddhanta's purport. That was the BBT purport, and characteristically we find the BBT just cuts and pastes from Bhaktisiddhanta. Uddhava said, O Lord, you are the Supreme Brahman, the transcendental personality of Godhead, the Lord of Vaikuntha. You have personally manifested in this world by your own sweet will. You have assumed innumerable forms of incarnation, and now you have appeared in your eternal two-armed form as Murlidhar, which is independent of your features of Brahman Paramatma and the four-armed Lord Narayana. You have directly descended to this world from your eternal abode, Goloka Vrindavan, unquote. After reading this verse, unscrupulous people may think that Krishna appeared in this form before Uddhava as a manifestation of Brahman, or as an expansion of Paramatma. Paragraph. The devotees eternally serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world in forms of full consciousness and bliss. And just two more sections and we're finished for this morning. Next is Bhaktisiddhanta's gloss of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Two paragraphs. The pure devotees of the Lord are interested in delivering the conditioned soul from their ignorance. As such, they are considered to be direct representatives of the Lord and thus non-different from him. Although the Lord is fully self-satisfied and thus not at all interested in the affairs of the material world, still, by his causeless mercy, he sometimes incarnates just to propagate devotional service for the benefit of the ignorant conditioned souls. Paragraph. Thus, it must be concluded that the Lord descends in various forms as incarnations for the pleasure of his devotees. He also appears as the deity, so that his devotees can render service unto him. The Lord is not different from his devotees, because he preaches devotional service through his devotees. This has been expressed by Sri Narada. Quote, having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, to quit the body made of 5 material elements, unquote. Thus, the devotees are considered to be non-different from the Lord. The Lord is self-satisfied and so is indifferent to this material world, and yet he, the Lord, incarnates to preach devotional service to himself. By his own sweet will, he assumes various forms such as Kapila, Dattatreya, and Narada. Thus it is seen that although the Lord is one, he assumes many transcendental forms. And Vishwanath's commentary, 3 paragraphs, they're short. Those devotees who teach bhakti are different from your Swarup, but arise from your Swarup. You are the Supreme Brahman without material association like the sky, since you are superior to Prakriti, yet you appear by your mercy in this world to deliver the jivas. You manifest many forms according to the desires of your devotees. This means that you give forms which arise from your Swarup to your devotees, so that bhakti can be spread. Narada has said, quote, having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the Lord, I quit this body made of the 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fruitive results of work stopped. Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6, verse 29. So that's Narada to Vyasa. Paragraph. Thus, people meditate upon Guru, your devotee, as your Swarup. Another meaning is, quote, you appear in this world in order to spread your bhakti, even though you are indifferent to the world, since you enjoy in yourself, unquote. By your will you give rise to many forms like Kapila, Dattatreya, and Narada. It is said, Bhagavatam 10:47, quote, and yet others, those whose intelligence is pure, follow the injunctions of Vaishnava scriptures promulgated by you. Absorbing their minds in you, they worship you as the one Supreme Lord manifesting in multiple forms. So, circling back to, this is a transition point. For many, 4.5 chapters, there's been emphasis on knowledge and detachment from the world, so that one's mind can become purified and become fixed in devotional service. And because attachments to the temporary are obstacles. The objects are not the problem. It's the attachment to being the enjoyer of objects. That's the problem. And that invokes Maya. Maya covers the living entity so that even good people can't understand Krishna properly. So after that long section of knowledge and detachment, Krishna then starts describing what follows that detachment is attachment to Krishna, and he gives different formulas for how attachment to him can be awakened. And the primary is hearing topics about him. And then he describes persons that don't have that absorption in topics about him. Here's what they can do. They can perform their duties, worldly duties, without attachment to the fruits, and continue hearing topics about him because they're all benedictory for that person, for the world. And then he starts moving back and forth between those that aren't there yet and those that are there. There meaning they have pure devotion. So then comes Uddhava's question, what are the characteristics of someone that is qualified to offer service to you? And those who are so qualified, how do they consider what their duties are? So it's a progression. It's quite gradual, but a progression from attachment to detachment to bhakti. So then the previous verse was describing some of the characters. There's a series. No, Krishna hasn't given the characteristics yet. Uddhava is still asking. And he's now making, not just asking, but he's making statements. This verse, anyway, he's making a statement about forms of the Lord are transcendental. And, there's different ways of describing what does that mean, transcendental. But one of them is there's no material contact, and yet he comes in the material world. So he's not under the influence of the material world, like the jivas are under the influence of the material world. He is aloof from the affairs of the material world, using this metaphor of the sky. It's used in Bhagavad Gita also. The sky doesn't mix. As the mighty wind is blowing in the sky doesn't move, but the wind moves, because the sky is more subtle. The wind is blowing this way, that way, and the sky is, being more subtle, is unmoved, unchanged. So he, Krishna, is unchanged, avikara. There's shad vikara, there's 6 transformations of anyone that gets a material body. And he's avikara, he has no change or no transformation. And yet he appears. And then the statement is that there's 2 ways he, according to the desires of the devotee, he manifests different forms. Or the second understanding is, according to his mercy upon the devotees, he empowers them to distribute the message of bhakti. So the devotees, the forms of devotees, are to be considered like the form of the Supreme Lord. Although they're perishable forms, the devotees' material forms are perishable, they're to be considered like the Supreme Lord. And the reason is they're invested with a potency to disseminate knowledge of him. So instead of him doing it himself, they're his representatives. And they're to be understood and respected in that way. So here's one image. Then on the right side, those are the Leela avatars primarily. My dear Lord, as the absolute truth, you are transcendental to material nature, and like the sky, you are never entangled in any way. Still, being controlled by your devotees' love, you accept many different forms, incarnating according to your devotees' desires. That's one of the glories, the outstanding characteristics of Krishna is Bhaktavatsala. He reciprocates with the devotees, the desires of the devotees, and so forth. So, he appears as different forms, or he empowers devotees in different forms to manifest his message or his glories. And this way, the bhakti, the fulfillment of the Lord's desire is made possible through them, through their disseminating topics about him. Okay, so 7:30. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah?
So, from the reading, it also appeared like, Krishna appears in various spiritual forms. Also, the very form of Krishna looks like he gives special mercy to these elevated devotees where they perceive him in a more intimate manner. So even this very same form of Krishna appears to be like different people's
Yes.
perceive it in different ways.
Correct.
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj.
Guru Maharaj, I always heard that Krishna's form is always spiritual, but in this Madhvacharya's comment, it says that Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, never accepts or rejects material body. He never had.
The sound went out. What happened? Okay, so he never accepts a material or rejects a material body, means he has a spiritual body. He never accepts a material body and never rejects a material body because he doesn't have one and doesn't reject one. He has a spiritual form. It's another way of saying the same thing. It's the backdoor way of saying the same thing. It's by negation instead of the positive.
Okay.
His form is all spiritual. The negative is he never accepts a material form and rejects a material form.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So here it is saying the people who are...
Here it is saying what?
Here it is saying the material people who